Hello and welcome to the Midnight Bible Study. 7 Fast. Is interval fasting biblical? That's the topic of today's report. So there's many fasts in the Bible, and I'm going to talk about 7 fasts. There's plenty more than that, but I'm going to talk about 7 important fasts in the Bible, and then talk about it. Is interval fasting covered in the Bible? And that's going to may have a surprising answer. Um, so Now, the first fast in the Bible I'm going to talk about is Moses' 40-day fast, probably one of the most famous fasts in all history. Moses goes up on the mountain. He fasts for 40 days in communion with God. God gives him the Ten Commandments. So obviously, this is, it's a 40-day fast. It's a big deal, and it was for a huge reason. I mean, you can see what came out of that was changed world history forever and change the destiny of the nation of Israel. And Moses this was a special calling he had as the leader of Exodus and leading the people out of bondage in Egypt. So, okay, the second fast I want to talk about is Ahab's fast as he humbled himself for God. Now, Ahab was a very proud, powerful ruler. And bad things happen because God is very clear in the Bible. If your pride is not a virtue, pride is God tears down the pride and the humble he lifts up. And so Ahab was very proud about the most powerful man of his time, and he was completely humiliated by God. And finally, he got the message, and he humbled himself through God, and he did this with a fast. And in Israel, humbling yourself and fasting are congruous; they're known to go together. So it's very important to humble ourselves for the reasons I just spoke about. And when Ahab did that, God lifted him up once again. Now Esther's fast, as she sorrowed over Haman's wicked plot to destroy her people. Now, Queen Esther, Haman had this evil plot to basically, it was a genocide. He wanted genocide. He wanted all the Jewish people killed. It's an ancient demonic, satanic plot against the people of Israel. And this was, there's various people who have tried to carry it out, whether it's Hitler, whether it's Haman, or whether it's, Iran, the leaders of Iran, who knows. But so, what was Esther's response? She fasted because she knew of this evil plot to destroy her people and to eliminate her people. And so, as it turned out, she called for this fast, and this led to kind of a miracle of a twisting of circumstances. Fasting and prayer is a possible way to miracles, as suggested by the Bible. Pray and fast, and that's what happened. She was able to appeal to the king, and the king reversed the circumstances, and Haman suddenly became the one who was doomed. So, and that came through fasting and prayer. So, fasting and prayer is part of what it means to be God's people. That's expected. Now, Uzzah's fast is he wept over the sins of the returning remnant. So he wept over sins. Uzzah. Now that's another thing that, when we have fallen into sin, and we have probably fallen into debauchery or sin of any kind. I mean, that's kind of on a spiritual level, that's sort of a disaster. It's a disaster. Some people don't realize it if they're completely lost in the sauce, but it's bad news. So on the other hand, we're all sinners, and any of us could fall into sin if we're not careful, and if we're not watching, and we're not fasting and praying. So Uzzah fasted. His fast over he wept over the sins of it. So he's fasting and as he over these sins, and that can be a good response. If we fall into sin, that could be a good time to fast, and pray, because we have to end that pattern. We can't just accept that. That's not an acceptable pattern. It doesn't mean we're going to be perfect or sinless, but we certainly need to break that pattern and aim for perfection. And if we fall again, that's what confession is for. We go back to God and confess our sins and repent and decide to do better and to stop to sin no more, as Jesus said, sin no more, that worse things may come upon you. So another fast is Anna's fast as she awaited the Messiah. Anna's fast as she awaited the Messiah. Now Anna was a holy woman. She spent all of her time in the church, the Jewish church. The name always escapes me. But anyway, she had spent all her time in the church, fasting and praying. She was a wonderful woman of prayer, it's just, that's called holy living, and that's really our calling as Christians, is to live holy lives. In fact, Mother Teresa said that we're all expected to be holy, not just, oh, look at that saint, they're holy. Wow, there's something different. No, we're all called on to be holy as Christians. Cornelius' fast as he sought out God's plan of salvation. So as we want to, sometimes we're seeking answers to questions. We're seeking guidance and direction in our life. That could be a good time for fasting and prayer. Now, we don't want to, by the way, when we're fasting, we don't want to miss our opportunity for prayer. We don't want to forget about that. And then there's Paul's 14-day fast, because prayer or fasting, prayer is so powerful, but fasting and fasting acts like sort of like a turbocharge to our prayer. It gives us more power. Now Paul's 14-day fast while on a sinking ship. If we're in a crisis in our life, that's a good time to fast, as Paul demonstrates with his 14-day fast. So what about just one bonus fast here? Daniel's fast was for health reasons, as he read Jeremiah's prophecy and prayed for Judah's sins. But that's one hint we have in Daniel's fast when he was he was called to in the court when they were the nation of Israel was taken captive, and they were called on to eat a rich diet, and Daniel said, no, I don't want to do that. And so they fasted and lived off nothing but vegetables, which was a kind of vegetables and water, and it was sort of like a partial fast, and that turned out had good health effects, which leads to the interval fasting. Is interval fasting even in the Bible? And basically, not to my knowledge, no, interval fasting is not explicitly in the Bible. However, I will say this, in a sense, implicitly, you could say it's kind of pointed to in the Bible implicitly. You could infer it. And here's why I say that, because as Jesus is carrying the cross on the way to Golgotha, one thing he said is, if you want to be my disciple, those who are my disciples, if you want to be my disciple, pick up your cross and follow me. In other words, humble yourself and be willing, suffer for me, suffer on, self-discipline, whatever it means. Serve, follow me like the apostles. Serve God through various ways. Could be through fasting, could be through apostleship or evangelism or prayer, a prayer warrior. But if you're picking up a cross, you're doing, there's sacrifice involved in that, and some discomfort. And so one way to possibly humble ourselves in daily is a partial fast daily, and that kind of sounds like interval fasting. This is not out of the Bible. This is just an inference I'm making, which sounds like it would fit right into one way of looking at what Jesus said. That would be one snapshot of it. I'm not saying that's the whole picture at all of what he said, but that's possibly one reflection of what he said, would be humbling ourselves daily and following him through self-denial of fasting. So yeah, there's a lot more fast in the Bible. I could have talked about, another 14 of them or more. So, but those are 7 key fasts that point to key values that are important in the Bible. So if you're thinking of fasting, Catholics fast during Lent. Fasting can be done anytime. It can be done, whenever you're called to do it. Maybe it's a good time of prayer. But for anyone who's thinking of fasting, it's not really something to take lightly at all. I wouldn't go into any big fast ignorant. Okay, if you're even thinking of fasting and you don't have any experience with it, I would kind of recommend this book by Paul Bragg. It's called The Miracle of Fasting, and it helped me personally understand fasting. So I didn't make, fasting is basically really good for your health, but there are also things you have to be careful with. You don't want to go on a 2-week fast and then go on a binge eating right afterwards. You could get into some serious trouble that way. So you need to, if you're going to reintroduce food, it has to be done in a very, very slow and small amounts in the beginning. It's called a refeeding period, which can last up to a week. So, or it could be a few days, depending on it, for a shorter fast. But yeah, I recommend this book. It's helpful in different questions. If you read this book, you'll know a lot about fasting, and so that's one to keep in mind. And there's, I've got 8 or 9 other books on fasting here, but yeah, the basic one I'd recommend most is the one by Paul Bragg. So God bless you. Good night from the Midnight Bible Study.